So I don't quite know what to make of this, so I thought I'd bring it up to you. I just left a friend's house. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble speaking. The weakness that I'm going through, or whatever, is making it difficult. But he's asking me a bunch of questions about, what the Bible says and stuff there. And usually what I do is I'll look up what it says, but I'm more interested in the actual Hebrew version and comparing the different versions of it. So, here's a really good example. When I want to know something, this is I think this is the ESV Study Bible from MacArthur. This one's from Crossway. And then this one, so far, is my favorite. It's also from MacArthur, but this is the New American Standard Version. By the way, the reason it's my favorite is because this has the fancy pages in it. But I actually tend to read from this one more often than not. But here's what I do. I do one out of. So this doesn't actually say at the bottom what version it is. But if you open up the cover, it says in here somewhere. English Standard Version. Right. So when I have a question, I read what these say. And the reason I do that is because if you just flip to any page, there's all this extra information. So a regular Bible doesn't have this. It just has the text at the top. The study Bible also has multiple references to every word. And so I jump into it and I get a wider perspective. The other thing I do is I ask AI, what did it say? What is the Hebrew version? What is that word, right? And they're asking about tattoos. And there's a guy on YouTube who goes by the literal translation, or so he claims. I mean, I don't necessarily know for sure of what the literal translation of the Bible says as according to the Hebrew text. Most of the time I fact-checked him, I found that to be accurate. But tonight, got into an argument about tattoos. Now, I have a tattoo, one, but it's not about my tattoo. It's more about what the Bible says. And so about that, I asked AI there's other things we're talking about, but this seemed to be the really upsetting point for her, and we were just talking about this when I got home. I asked AI, what does the actual Bible say about tattoos? He said, and the AI says one verse, that's it, Leviticus 19:28. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. The Hebrew is ketovet, ka'ah. Ketovet comes from kitab, to write, so an inscription. And ka'aka is a hapax legomenon, appearing nowhere else in the entire Hebrew Bible, which means translators are essentially guessing from context in cognate languages. It probably relates to incising or gashing. So the single verse, everyone clings on to a word nobody can define with certainty. Okay? And it goes on to say that, again, this is AI, so you have to double check it. The context matters more than the word. Leviticus 19:26-31 is a tight cluster of pagan cult practices: eating blood, divination, trimming the beard in the manner of mountain rites, cutting yourself for the dead, which is what Taco Talk says, tattoo marks, cultic prostitution, consulting mediums. The first half of the verse of 28 explicitly says, for the dead. Whether that qualifier governs the tattoo clause too is genuinely debated, since grammatically attaches to the cutting clause, but literary parallelism pulls toward reading them together. And then it goes on to a couple other things. This likely concern marking your body as belonging. The likely concern marking your body as belonging to a deity or owner other than Yahweh. The rabbis picked up on this. Miska Mikot 3:6 records Rabbi Simon ben Judah arguing liability only attaches if you inscribe a divine name. The hermeneutical problem is unavoidable. It forbids mixed fabrics. Anyone studying verse 28 as binding owes an account of why verses 19 to 27 aren't the moral, civil, ceremonial tripartite division that usually does the work, is a post-biblical scholastic construct, useful but not something that the text itself hands you. Marks somewhere else in scriptures are often positive. Isaiah 44:5 pictures someone writing the Lord's on his hand. Ezekiel 9:4 has protective marks on his forehead. Revelation has seals on the foreheads of the redeemed, and the name of Christ on the thigh in Galatians 6:17. So, what's usually cited but shouldn't be. Corinthians 6:19-20, your body is a temple. Read the surrounding verses. Paul is arguing against sexual immorality, specifically visiting prostitutes, has nothing to do with body modification. It goes on to say that it's ambiguous. Okay. That's what that says. Here's how I resolve that. I didn't have this option there, but Leviticus 19:28. Oh, so the one thing I did do there, right? This first thing I do, I pull it up in the app. 1928. No, let me go back to it. Was it 1928 or I think it's something else? Yeah, 1928. So I bring it up in the Bible app, and then I go to compare. And the New English Standard Bible from 1995 says, "You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord." ESV says, "You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead, or tattoo yourself. I am the Lord." ASV says, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any markings upon you. I am Jehovah." New International Version, do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. NLT says, do not cut your bodies for the dead and do not mark your skin with tattoos. I am the Lord. That's all Leviticus 19:28. So that's all I had to go on when I was there. I said, judging by what I'm reading, if what this says is correct about that context area, then, what it says in the surrounding area, then I'd go by that. So let's go with NASB. Is probably going to be the best version for this, because this one seems like they almost in the same sentence, whereas in this one It almost looks like they're two different ones. This is the English Standard Version. Oh, New American Standard Bible, NASB. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourself. Okay, so we're going to go with this one. So Leviticus 19:28. That's like way up here, right? Yeah. 1928. And I'm going to see where it is. So I'm going to do a few different things here. And I'm just doing it live, so you see how I do it. 19. Well, okay. So first of all, let me just show you real quick. I'm just going to look at 17, 18, 19. There's sections. 17 is blood for atonement. 18 is laws on immoral relations. 19 is idolatry forbidden. Right? So, 1928. Okay, so here's what I wanted at the bottom. (1926) says divination or soothsaying, and again, this is the bottom text of the MacArthur Study Bible. Divination or soothsaying, attempting to tell the future with the clouds, blah blah blah. 1927 to 28. These pagan practices were likely associated with Egyptian idolatry and were therefore to be avoided. The practice of making deep gashes on the face and arms or legs in times of grief was universal among pagans. It was seen as a mark of respect for the dead, as well as a sort of propriety of fearing to the gods who presided over death. The Jews learned this custom in Egypt and, though weaned from it, relapsed into it of old superstition. Tattoos also were connected to the names of idols and were permanent signs of apostasy. And then 1929, profane your daughter. Even the pagans of ancient Assyria at the time forbade such horrendous means of monetary gain. I probably don't want to know what that means. Yeah. 1929 says, do not profane your daughter by making her a harlot, so that the land will not fall to harlotry and the land become full of lewdness. You shall keep my Sabbath and revere my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Well, we're not talking about 29. We are talking about, I think, 28. So let's back up to 26, though. You shall not eat anything with the blood, nor practice divination or soothsaying. 27. You shall not round off the side growth of your heads, nor harm the edges of your beard. 28. You shall not make any tattoo cuts in your body for the dead, or cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourself. I, the Lord. Excuse me. All right. That's the ESV. And now I go to, instead of MacArthur, I'm going to go through Crossway, Leviticus, also ESV. Okay. And there's one other thing to go through too, but I'm going to. But if you ever ask why it takes me so long to figure something out, if I do a deep dive in it, like, what are we at? 14 minutes? And I'm just getting started. Okay, 1928. You shall not interpret Urban's fortune tellers. 27. You shall not round off the hair on your temples or mar the edges of your beard. 28. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead or tattoo yourself. I am the Lord. Okay. And then I'm going to go down here and find 1928. It says 26 to 30, 1926 to 31. These are all practices of the Canaanites. Holiness requires Israel not act like pagans in any areas of life. That's it. Well, now, since I have all three out, I want to go back to MacArthur. I was curious if these two versions had different text on different things. So now let's see. I actually wonder if the pages are close too. Pages 145. Nope. Pages aren't, they're ish, but all right, let's see what it says. So, word for word, it looks like the bottom of both MacArthur books are the same, at least on that section. But let's go back to sometimes the context of where it matters, where it is matters. So let me just read here. Do not profane your daughter. So it goes from, okay, you should keep my statutes. You shall not let your cattle breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two different kinds of seed. You shall not wear a garment cloth made of two kinds of materials. If a man lies sexually with a woman who is a slave assigned to another man and not yet ransomed or given her freedom, a distinction shall be made. They shall not be put to death because she was not free, but he shall bring his compensation to the Lord to the entrance of the tent of meeting, a ram for a guilt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering before the Lord for his sin that he has committed, and he shall be forgiven for the sin that he has committed. When you come unto the land and plant any kind of tree for food, then you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. "3 years it shall be forbidden to you, it must not be eaten. And in the 4th year all its fruit shall be holy, and offer your praise to the Lord. But in the 5th year you may eat of its fruit to increase its yield for you. I am the Lord your God." So that looks like that finishes off that section. And then the next section is, you should not eat any flesh with the blood in it. You shall not interpret opens or tell fortunes. Yeah, so that's where the 26 to whatever go to. It also goes on to say after that, do not profane. Okay, so it says 26 is not eat any flesh. 27 is not run out the hair. 28 is not making any tattoos or cuts. Now, there's also a section here, not making any cuts, and that's B, for the dead or tattoo yourself, I am the Lord. So, what is 1926B? 19... or 1928, rather. B. Chapter 21, 1, 4, and 5. 21, 1, holiness of the priest. And the Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests and the sons of Aaron, say to them, no one shall make himself unclean for the dead among his people, except for his closest relatives, his mother, father, and son, his son, his daughter, his mother, brother, or his virgin sister, who is near to him because she has no husband. For her he may make himself unclean. He shall not make himself unclean as a husband among his people, so profane him. They shall not make bald patches on their head, nor shave off the edges of the beards, nor make any cuts on their body. They shall be holy to their God, and not profane the name of their God. For they offer the Lord's food offerings, the bread of their gods, therefore they shall be holy. So there's a lot of overlap between holiness and the priests. The only thing that's missing between those two sections is tattoos. So that's kind of interesting. But what is section 21 talking about? Clean contact. Is make himself unclean, coming into contact with a corpse, or being in the same room with one, made one unclean. Exceptions were dead for the priest's own family. Bald edges, cuts, and markings. These were superstitious marks on grief. The bread of their gods, 5 times Leviticus. Okay. And now I'm going through again. I'm trying to read down here. So, going back to this, 28, you shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead or tattoo yourself. What I find interesting, so this is an or, this is ESV. Okay. This is NASB. You shall not make any tattoos, cuts in your body. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourselves. And B, this one has a mark to B. Let me see what this one is. Probably the same context, 1928. Soul. Oh. Okay. I think it's saying the literal translation is flesh and soul. So that would be, you shall not make any cuts on your flesh for the soul, nor make any tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. The fact that it says, I am the Lord, that might mean something as well. But let me see what else we see here. Okay, so that's that. Now here's another thing I do. So I definitely see the lack of clarity. It almost reads, the one person's argument is that it's a separate, the one argument I got is that they're joined. It's a pagan practice. And it is in a list of pagan practices, but it's also, if you read the surrounding text, it may not be. But let's see the outline here. It was 19. It's under guidelines. It's listed here as guidelines for practical holiness under capital or grave, or no, 19's neighborliness. One of the things I like to read on these things is it will say, like, what's the general purpose of this? Authorship. All right, Leviticus is both a manual of the worship of God in Israel and a theology of Old Covenant ritual, comprehensive understanding of the ceremonies, laws, and ritual details prescribed in the book is difficult today because Moses assumed a certain context of historical understanding. Once the challenge of understanding the detailed prescriptions have been met, the question arises as to how the believers in the church should respond to them, since the New Testament clearly arbitrages the Old Testament ceremonial law, the Leviticus priesthood and sanctuary, as well as instituting the New Covenant, rather than trying to practice the old ceremonies or look for some deeper spiritual significance in them. The focus should be on the holy and divine character behind them. This may be partly the reason that explanations where Moses were given and the prescriptionness for the cleanliness offer greater insight of the mind of God than do the ceremonies themselves. Okay. And I'll read a similar section from this book. So again, I'm looking at, like when I look into something, I'm looking at it from multiple perspectives, and I'm just bringing you along. And now, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, right? I also have, I think, 2 or 3 more books I can dive into. And so if you're interested in this kind of breakdown from somebody who's new and just legitimately trying to explore, let me know. These videos are going to be quite long because it's a lot to cover. And this is just one simple thing, right? That's mentioned one place in the book, which is about all I would have the patience and time to do. Ideally with the voices not giving out on me. This is the one I like, yeah. The book of Leviticus is a further and deeper unfolding of the divine-human relationship codified on Mount Sinai. On the one hand, it assumes that Israel is sinful and impure. On the other hand, it describes how to deal with sin and impurity so that the Holy Land can dwell in the people's midst. Leviticus should be considered a continuation of Exodus. And the second part is devoted to building the tabernacle, blah, blah, blah. Interpretive issues. It's a difficult book, mainly because modern readers have no first-hand experience of ancient rituals. Should be aware of potential pitfalls of imposing concepts or distinctions that are foreign to biblical text itself. With this general warning in mind, several particular interpretation issues may be mentioned. Ritual and ethical commands. To begin with, there's some debate about how to understand the relationship between ritual regulations, chapters 1 through 16, that are commonly called moral or ethical commands of chapters 17 to 27. It's not uncommon for modern readers to see ritual and ethics as two very separate matters, and thus view these two on two different sections of the book as quite different and distinct. Leviticus, however, is more nuanced than that. While it may be true that not every ethical law of chapters 7, 17, 27 involves a ritual, it's not true that every ritual law of chapters 1 through 16 is disconnecting in ethics. So, yeah, there's that. Let's see here. This is my afternoon video. My evening video. I was about to go to bed before I did this, and then I got distracted. So this outline says chapter 19 is under call to holiness. Call to holiness. Well, that's not helpful. But right above it, 18:1 through 30, it says are prohibitions against pagan practices. B, call to holiness, chapter 19, 1 through 37. C, punishment for disobedience, 20, and then 1 through 27. And then it goes on to priests and all that. So call to holiness. So I want to go back. I'm going to use this book here to the start of 19. So here's what I would do, and I'd have to do this off camera because it would take a couple hours. But I would start by understanding the beginning to try to understand the concept, because it's broken up into sections. So I'm just going to start with 19 here. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the congregation of the people of Israel, say to them, you shall be holy, for I am the Lord your God, am holy. Every one of you shall revere his mother and father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols or make for yourself any gods of cast metal. I am the Lord thy God. When you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings to the Lord, you shall offer it so that you may be accepted. It shall be in the same day you offer it, or on the day after. And anything left over, the third day shall be burned up with fire. If it is eaten at all on anything left over until the third day, shall be burned up with fire. Oh, I got off track. If it is eaten at all on the third day, it is tainted and will not be accepted. And everyone who eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned what is holy to the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from his people. Okay, and then it says, love your neighbor as yourself, and it's like a section. And I want to know if we have the same kind of section here. So let me see if we do. Oops. We get to 19. I gotta figure out how to get these pages separated. Let's see if this is... Yeah, this one's got like different sections. These sections are broken up a little bit better. It's clear because it's written in blue and larger text. But so the section that's in is "You shall keep my statutes." So the very start of that just says "You shall keep my statutes," and then it basically just lists all these different things. But here's what I want to look for. I'm looking for a writing pattern. So what I mean by that is, what I'm specifically curious about is how multiple things are broken up. If they're compound, if they're separated, how they're separated, when one concept is another concept, right? So I'm just going to start from 19. You shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your cattle breed with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seeds, nor shall you wear a garment of cloth made of two kinds of material. Okay, so we're talking about cattle, farming, and clothes, in that order. And then I'm going to do the next section. If a man lays sexually with another man who is a slave assigned to another man, and not yet resumed or given her freedom, a distinction shall be made. They shall not be put to death because she was not free. But he shall bring his compensation to the Lord to the entrance of the tent or meeting, a ram for guilt, and that priest shall be made atonement for him. I'm just going to skip ahead here. With the ram of the guilt and the offering, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the first section is basically follow my rules. Don't let cattle mix, don't let fields mix, and don't let garments mix. And those, if you were to group those into a category, that's one paragraph. Those are mixing things. They're all together. Right? The next paragraph, it's all talking about one thing, and that's sleeping with a slave, basically. And then continuing on 19:23, when you come into the land and plant any kinds of trees for the fruit, I talked about that one. The fifth year, up to 19:25, goes to the fifth year, you may eat of the fruit to increase its yield for you. Okay. So from 23 to 25, it's talking about this tree fruit, when you can have the fruit. So now we're going to get to the section in question. And the section in question is 26, 27, and 28. It says, you shall not eat the flesh of the blood in it. You shall not interpret omens or tell fortunes. You shall not round off the hair of your temple, no markings edge of your beard. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead or tattoo yourself, for I am the Lord. Now that's that section. Now we're going to come back to that in a second. The next section, the next paragraph, starts at 29, so 1929. Do not profane your daughter by making her a prostitute, lest the land fall into prostitution, and the land becomes full of depravity. You shall keep my Sabbath and reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. So it's another section. Okay. So why did I just go through all those sections? Well, here's why. When you look at the previous, before, and after, right, there's a common theme. Each paragraph is related to a common thing, and it defines them as best they can. Now, I'm going to pick on that first paragraph in a second. I'm going to go back to that. I haven't heard anyone argue about wearing garments of cloth made with two different kinds of materials. And by the way, we tend to do that. So, if you have a tattoo, right, and in the case of my friend, apparently she got ridiculed by the priest. She's very upset. She seems very upset about that. So if you have a tattoo, let me see what it says about the extra text says about the cloth, because I'm curious about that now. So it was 1919. It might not mean what we think it means. Go figure. 1919 says these mixtures may have been characteristics of some idolatrous practices. Okay, that's in this book. Now we go. Oh, that's another MacArthur book. And again, I have another book I could go to, and I have one that's got a different perspective. But 1919, right? That's where I was at. Esquiva statutes. Very, very, very close. That's one of the things that's hard to tell on this, is like how the paragraph breaks are. But 1919 to 37. All right, this is 1919 to 37. Holiness means more than mere separation, but it always signifies that something is set apart in its proper sphere. In this section, the principles apply in a variety of life, such as agricultural practices in which two different types of seeds shall not be planted together. 1919. Two different kinds of domesticated animals were not to be crossbred, and two different types of cloth were not to be woven together. Ceremonial holiness requires that things stay in their proper sphere, just as Israel must observe separation from the nations. Okay, so what I get from that is it's kind of using context to convey a complex topic. And I think what it's saying is you don't want to mix the new religion with the old religion and kind of like weave them together. And I think this is trying to make it very clear all these old practices, they are not to be interwoven with these new ones. Among other things, these things are also not allowed. So it's a little bit layered there. And that's from reading like multiple versions, right? So where it says that it shouldn't be done, that's the only section apparently that tattooing is listed. And if you, at least from my reading, it seems like it might be clear. On face value, it seems like it might be clear that tattoos are not allowed according to Leviticus. Was what, 1929, right? No, 1928. But every other section doesn't have a weird outlier rule. Does that make sense? Like mixing fabrics kind of seems like an outlying rule. First it says don't mix cattle. Then it says don't mix seeds. And that you shouldn't wear a garment of cloth made of two kinds of materials. To me, that's trying to communicate an idea by linking them all together. You probably aren't supposed to do those things individually either, but if, and I stress if, and I have another book that can address this, but the argument that you shall not make tattoo cuts, make any cuts in your body for the dead or tattoo yourself. If that pagan practice is a 2-in-1, you make a cut and that cut makes a tattoo. If that's what happened at the time, if that was a ritual at the time, which Taco Talks' argument suggests that it is. Then that clearly encapsulates that one whole thing, and this entire section makes sense. If it doesn't, it seems very weird. So because it's part of the same sentence, right? So, like, when I read the first sentence, you shall not eat any flesh with the blood in it. Then the next sentence, you shall not interpret omens or tell fortunes. Well, that's basically the same thing. That's in one sentence. You shall not round off the hair of your temples or mar the edges of your beard. So both of those are related to hair. Same sentence. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves. I am the Lord. That's another sentence. So it seems like that is one thing, one thought, like one action. Again, that's just my reading of it. And it's not mentioned anywhere else. So it kind of leads me to believe that that's one practice. Now, I could do a deeper dive, but even, there's no way she's going to watch this to begin with. But my buddy might. But I have one more book, and it has archaeological context. I've never read it. I've never gone into it. But it might provide insights into the tattoo. You know what? I'm going to pause the video and get that book. Look at you made me dim. All right, I got the last two books. This one's Archaeology Study Bible, English Standard Version. And this publisher is Crossway, which I have. That's the one book. This one is a completely different one. Zondervan. The New English Version, Cultural Backgrounds Study Bible. This is going to be the one that'll probably help answer that question. So let's see what this one says in that context. This has got those pretty things. Those little, I'm sorry. I get distracted with this. So this one might be, might take a while to get there. Leviticus 19. Do not cut your bodies for the dead, or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. Okay. All right. Here is probably the answer. Do not cut your bodies for the dead. Lacerating oneself in the morning was a highly heightened expression of sorrow. Baal is dead. He goes to blah, blah, blah. He pours dirt of mourning on his head, dust of humiliation on his cranium. For clothing is covered with guarded garment with a stone. He scratches incisions on his skin with a razor. He cuts cheeks of his chins. He harrows his upper arms, plows his chest like a garden, harrows his back, garden in a valley. In the Eket legend, professional mourners cut or possibly bruise the skin. An Akkadian text from Ugat describes persons who lacerate themselves on behalf of a dying righteous person, tattoo marks. So literally the process of cutting one was a tattoo mark. Unlike the first part of the verse, tattoos are not associated with the mourning rites. The use of tattoos is evidence from early in the biblical period. Some mummies display them. Many simply feature geometric patterns, but some have portrayals of gods or the names of gods. These at times are used to mark someone's loyalty to a particular god. In Mesopotamia, most known gods are slave markings. Okay. I think I'm missing a page. Hold on. 213, 214. Nope, yep. Our slave markings. Known examples of priest marks to designate the gods they serve. It can therefore be concluded tattoos are likely banned not just because of what they do to the body, but because of what they communicate about a relationship to a deity. Okay. So this book is trying to imply that tattoos are banned outright, while also in the same breath saying that the markings that's left behind is called a tattoo. So it's making it's very, to me it seems like it's making a different argument in its own text. But like I said, we got one more here. So we're gonna find the similar section in this one. I'm getting much better at finding out Leviticus 19, by the way. 1915. You should not make any cuts, tattoos in the body. Okay, so 1929. This one says these practices were pagan mourning rituals, particularly among the Canaanites. Ancient Deuteronomy 14:1 and Kings 18. Ancient Near Eastern worshippers also bore marks on their bodies, such as tattoos, as a sign of a devotion to a particular deity. So, my read on this, and my read in other sections, is that if it's because the pagan ritual, that makes sense in the context that it is, right? That would be one thought of a paragraph. If it's a completely separate thing, it would fall under idolatry. And I would expect to see that again where it talks about idolatry. So I find it far more likely, because even the one section that has like talking about mixing farms, mixing animals, and mixing fabrics, that's really, or combining them rather, mixing them, combining them, whatever. That's about that one concept applied to three different things. Also, most people mix fabrics, so I bet that's far more common than getting a tattoo. So if somebody is calling you out for a tattoo, then yeah, I would ask them about the wearing a garment made of two different kinds of materials. I think I'm good with the shirt. The shirt is just wool. But my shorts, I think I'm in trouble. But I also have a tattoo, so, you know. But, yeah, it looks like contextually, again, having gone through all of these books, and this is getting insane here. If you want to look, we had this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, plus my phone. So, a couple of books. Yeah, hold on, let me get you back in there. So, just my reading of it, right? And then what you do, what I would do, this is off camera, I've taken all this information in, right? Again, I'm just a new Christian, but I'm genuinely curious about this now. So now that I've taken all the information, I've read about it, I've thought about it, now I'm going to pray upon it. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to pray, I'm going to ask for guidance and see if my understanding is correct. I'm not going to do that tonight on camera. Not going to, probably never going to pray on camera. But looking at all the information I have arrayed with me, even though he broke it down quite simply, it seems like Taco Talks is likely correct. However, I hope I've given you a very unbiased view. It could be that it's like, you can't do this, you can't do this. Oh, and also this other thing. But most of the books of the Bible are fairly well organized. And so, and if it is about idolatry, which is the other option it could be, you would expect it to be in the idolatry sections where it mentions that. But it seems to be in a section specifically related to pagan rituals. So, I find it far more likely that it's the pagan rituals, and the tattoos that we know of today are not specifically against it in the Bible. Now, I will say this, and it's something that I've been meaning to do a deep dive in, and maybe I'll do it on video. If you guys like it, let me know. And it's something that hit me today. I think what might be a sin for certain people is not a sin for others. And what I mean by that is, I think it's okay for me to have an alcoholic drink. I don't think it's okay for me to have a cigarette, because it's very unlikely I'll stop at one cigarette and I'll obsess over a cigarette. But if I have a beer or I have a shot, I won't think anything more of it than I would a soda, right? Actually, I'll probably think of a soda more than I would of an alcoholic beverage. I can take it or leave it. And what specifically that relates to, and why it may or may not be a sin, is because it could be idolatry. And another example is my diet. I'm on a diet, and one of the reasons I'm on my diet is because it makes food, I don't want to say less appealing, but not a spur of the moment, like driving my thoughts kind of mode. I'm not a slave to my body. It makes my diet a very methodical, thought out process, not so much whatever whims my body has, right? So that means effectively that God's at the center of my thought process. And I could ask, hey, if I'm curious, can I have a drink now or whatever, right? If I were to ask myself that, yeah, probably, because to me it doesn't really bother me. But I've known some alcoholics, and it would risk them not putting Jesus at the center of their life. So if it's crowding that space, then it becomes idolatry. And it doesn't matter what it is. And if you look at gluttony is, in general, it being in that center space, that core of your heart. And that's what God wants. That's what Jesus wants. And so anything that crowds that space basically is bad for you. But what's bad for you isn't necessarily bad for me. We all create it differently. And so I want to see if that is in the Bible. I think it is. I think it's probably spelled out. And I think what you're seeing in Leviticus, which later Jesus talks about or discusses later in more depth, I think that's just a continuation of a thought. But one is giving people very simplified rules, and the other is to determine what rules apply to you. And I don't know if you can use the Bible that way or not. Like, I don't know if that works that way. Again, I'm just a newbie, and that's just been my take on it. If you disagree or you want me to look at something or you have new information, I'd be happy to respond to any comments, questions, video, criticism, documentation, whatever. The only thing I won't respond to is, oh, so-and-so says this. If it's not the text, like if it's not specifically in the Bible, right? And I don't mean like if it's not in my Bible, if it's not in this Bible. I mean if it's not in the Holy Bible with the New Testament and the Old Testament. And you can't get that information from various translations, like you can only get it from one, then my question is going to be, what is the literal word from word translation from the original Hebrew text? What does it mean in context as translated today? What you just saw, that took me an hour, was one concept, right? And what is my answer? Probably this, right? So, yeah. But I don't claim to have the answers. I'm not the guy that has the answers. I am the guy that will do the research, come up with my own opinion, and share it with you. And I will do so publicly. I'll do so fairly. If you want me to do these kinds of deep dives, and that's the kind of thing you want me to do, I really kind of find this fascinating. And I like to do deep dives into these kinds of things. And I'll start doing them live. I don't do any edits to my video except for when I got these books. But if I'm going to start doing this more often, I'll just keep all the books right here. I'll take notes, I'll do it live, and I'll interact with chat. I was actually thinking of doing that anyways. So if that's something you'd like to do, we can set aside a day and a time. Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Well, probably not Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday we do that. Or maybe Friday. You know, if you're interested, let me know. But, yeah. Now, I wanted to touch base on what I did today, because I never covered today. So, did go to church. I mostly relaxed, but I didn't spend a lot of time meditating today. My throat was doing better, but now it's getting a little worse. But it's scratchy to talk, obviously. And I still feel a little weakness in my hands. And I feel like a little weakness and fatigue in my body. But I've been trying to drink more water because I recently recognized that I'm not, I don't think I'm taking enough water in. So I need to get some more water. And today, even though I cheated a few other times this week, I went a little overboard with cheating, because of course I did. But I have noticed, and this is the thing I wanted to talk about, with gluttony's, a problem with me. So I have a tendency to overeat, but if I'm on the keto diet, I don't. It's not that, when I'm on keto, I'm on a kind of a really strict version of keto. Different people do it different ways, and to each their own, right? I have to do what's best for me as I best understand it. And so that's what I tried to do. And that's kind of why I wanted to do a deep dive into that before I got sidetracked by this whole tattoo thing. But I'm really thankful for the opportunity to do that and to test out this platform. Um, and, you know, it fascinates me how much these things happen, how much these little coincidences happen, because I don't believe in coincidences, right? So it's kind of like its own little miracle. But kind of fascinates me how they happen. It's definitely, I find it eye-opening to recognize, and it makes me very thankful. And I haven't asked this before, but, you know, if you like the video, like, subscribe, share. I've got all 12 people that watch this. 12 people that are subscribed. And I just switched to religious content. But I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not gonna always be religious content. I'm trying to just put my life more out there online, and you can see the struggles that I go with, because what a lot of people get wrong about Christianity is that it makes your life easier. It does not. Effectively, as I understand it, I am surrendering my free will to another being who has given me instruction booklets and told me, effectively, I want you to read and follow my instructions, and I've given you the Holy Spirit inside. I want you to learn the words, learn my voice, and give me time to speak to you. And I want you to speak to me as a friend moving forward, and I want you to listen to what I tell you, as a friend would guide and mentor you as you go through life. Nowhere in that is it promised to be easy. Nowhere in that am I promised a comfortable life. In fact, on a whim or for reasons that I won't be able to fathom, I want to get into Job at some point, but for reasons that I'll never be able to comprehend, I might be put through the ringer. I might have everything taken from me. And I need to be thankful if that happens. I need to thank him that he took everything away from me. My faith should be so strong. I should hope that my faith is so strong that I'm grateful for the things that are taken from me. And that's a big ask, and a lot of people are going to struggle with that. But I firmly believe if you're going to believe something, if you're going to follow the book, regardless of the translation, that's the thing, it's in all these translations. If you're going to follow these, follow them. If you're not, don't lie to yourself. Why put yourself through that if ultimately you're going to reject control in some areas of your life? Does that mean you need to be perfect? No. Not only do you not need to be perfect, it's not expected. What is expected is that you were to try, not based on what somebody else says, but based on what's in your heart. You should be continuously trying to improve, be better, do better, and to succeed, right? I'm never going to be as good as Jesus. It's not going to happen, but I can aspire to be, and that's expected of me. And I am expected to listen to all orders given to me from God through the Holy Spirit. Right? And yeah, that sounds crazy. And giving up control, especially me giving up control, if you know me personally, especially when I was younger, like that part of me has not changed. So I still have issues with authority. So to give that up, to truly give that up is hard. And I'm going through a transition right now. But you're getting to watch it live. And mostly unedited, because I won't edit videos. So if you find it fascinating, I'd appreciate your support, especially since I've been out of work for 6 months. And, you know, I tell you what, I don't want to lose what I have. Um, and it's not up to me. Ultimately, it's not up to me. It's up to God. It's up to circumstances. And I don't think God's to blame for everything we do. I'll get into my philosophy at some point. I want to find it in the Bible and kind of pull it apart from there. Because just like this section is often abused and used by, you know, men of faith, which I think Jesus would just be very upset with, like he was upset with the Pharisees. And I didn't understand what that meant until I kind of like learned the New Testament a little bit, but he seemed very upset with this group of people, and they're like, well, it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and it's like, hold up. Christians shouldn't behave that way. It's not my place to judge you. Unless or until I'm perfect, it's not my place to judge you. And even if I was perfect, the one who was perfect, Jesus, didn't behave that way, right? So if you think you're in a position to judge somebody, you're probably not, right? And you're probably not in a position to judge people anyways. But if you really were to be, the fact that you believe that means that you more than likely don't need to. That being said, there's a difference between judging and helping a fellow Christian out. And if you want to help me out by guiding me, by helping me on this journey, absolutely love you to. Even if you're in the opposition, even if you're coming at me like, hey, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Jesus, I don't believe in your religion, that's fine. I will accept that you don't, and hopefully you'll accept that I do. But if you want to poke a hole or you just find it entertaining for me to go through these kinds of things, I welcome that perspective. You probably won't change my mind, and I probably won't change your mind. But we can do this, see what we come away with. I firmly believe that, and what kind of sold me on Christianity, and again, I might go through it at some point, but it's difficult for me to explain yet. I'm still coming to terms with it. Again, I've really only considered myself a Christian for the last couple months. Like not even 3 months, right? So very new to being a Christian. There is a lot I don't know, like a whole lot I don't know. And even as I learn more, I'm probably going to revise what I believe moving forward as I learn more. Okay? So, like today, my belief on tattoos, they're probably okay. But, with one caveat, if you're idolizing your tattoos, or you want others to idolize your tattoos, probably not okay. My tattoo, I'm mostly indifferent to. My ability to go grab a bottle of mead and grab a drink, mostly indifferent to that, right? I could take it or leave it. If you're like, you can't have your tattoo for a year, I was like, okay. Or I can't have a drink for a year. Okay. You know. If you tell me I can't have the Bible and I can't have God in my life, I can't have Jesus in my life for a year, I'm going to be upset. But if you tell me I can't drink for a year, I'm not going to be that upset. You tell me I can't live here for a few years, not going to be upset. I'd prefer to keep this property. I'd prefer to own it, right? I worked hard for it. But if ultimately I can't, I can't. All right? I'll try my best to keep it. If I can't keep it, I'll move on after a couple of days. Well, might take a little longer, but I'll move on pretty quickly. And that's kind of the test that I think is important moving forward. how upsetting and how much does it push God out of the center of your world, right? If you're pushing God out of your world to make space for this, then something's gone out of whack. And you're not putting them forward. Even charity can push God out. If you are sacrificing God and your time with God and your ability to communicate with Him for others in your life, you're not putting God first. If Jesus isn't first, you're doing it wrong. And that's going to be hard to hear for some people. But that is my understanding of what the Bible says. And the Bible is the one, not your preacher, not your friend, not the internet. The Bible as best you can understand it by doing some thorough research, which is what I hope to do. And that research should come from a place of love and wanting to understand, not to prove a conviction. So if you were to come in here and you'd be like, I want to prove that tattoos are good, or I want to prove that tattoos are evil, you're coming at it from the wrong way. If you approach it from, I want to understand what it says, I want to understand the concepts, and then I want to see how it is later. So not bringing any feelings into it, not bringing any preconceived notions into it. You really have to let everything go and then try to pick apart where and how everything relates. Again, being contextually aware, being archaeologically aware, being historically aware, being culturally aware. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes study. But if you want to do that with me, I'm welcome to go on this journey with you. So, yeah, on to that. Good night.